Ger, after a year away, is it nice to be back in the studio?
It's great to be back again. Believe it or not, I was here last year for the first 2 games. You know, I was here until the middle of June last year, and it was the 23rd of June, that famous day of the Fair of Spancel Hill. That was the day I made my exit and headed for James's. So it's great to have all that behind me now, to be back again and really looking forward to a new hurling season. It's just, you know, there's a certain excitement when the season starts at the start of the season, and, you know, no better place to start than with the Munster Championship.
And looking towards the championship after the league last week, is there any way to look past Kilkenny?
If you just looked strictly at the league final last year, you'd say Kilkenny were overwhelming favourites to win the league. Now, the fact that Michael Fennelly, their most influential player, and that is among many, many influential players in Kilkenny, that the fact that he's injured and doubts about when exactly he'll be back, that Richie Power won't be back for a while. Will Henry Shefflin be back? And if he's back, will he be in the same form as before? Michael Rice. These haven't played in a long, long time. So when they do come back, and Kilkenny play their first game, which will most likely be against Dublin on the 23rd of June, you know, what will their actual form be when they play in that game? So there are questions even about Kilkenny. And very often times when you play really well in the league and on a league final, you find it hard to repeat that level of intensity and that quality of that play when it comes to the championship. So other teams have been lying low, they haven't pushed themselves in the championship, and maybe when it comes out there and the championship starts, we will see some team, or maybe other teams, playing the kind of hurling that they haven't played so far this year, and you never know. All we want early on especially is a shock, and that is what would really make the championship.
We've seen signs from Clare, Cork, maybe Galway, that those young teams could come through this year as well. Well,
you see, you look around, you see Galway are building for the future, so are Clare, so are Limerick, so are Cork, so are Waterford, so are Wexford. So there are so many teams building for the future. But, you know, I found this when I was with Clare, we were always going for the future, but actually the future happened that year. You know, it can happen like that. The players can make huge advance when the hurling season, the training season starts, which is around April. From April to June, some players make huge progress. So maybe there's some team out there that are making massive progress, and when the championship does start, we'll see something from them that we haven't seen before. In other words, that they will be real contenders for the All-Ireland.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from our Twitter page from Johnny O'Connor. Why are Kilkenny getting away with being so physical?
Well, I think every team's got very, very physical. Kilkenny started being very, very physical about 5 or 6 years ago, you know, where it was almost a football-like intensity with which they played, you know, players on top of each other, swarming around the man in possession. But I think since then that every other team, the hurling has got very, very physical. And, you know, especially since all the helmets came in, I think how players use the hurling, they're a little bit more careless with it now than they were when people weren't wearing helmets. So we just have to get used to it. That's the way the game is now. It is very, very physical. I think the main thing is that we draw the line between being physical and being dangerous. You know, that's what I would see it. And then anything that involves careless use of the hurley, to me, is dangerous play. And I would hope that would be that referees would pull up on that when the championship starts this year. But as regards players hitting each other, hitting off each other, I'd say, and hard clashes, we don't want that going out of the game. The physicality must stay there, but we must see that there is a line between physicality and danger, and anything that's dangerous must be punished.